Hi dear children, welcome back to the Gurudev online class. This is Shivraj, teacher of social science, Gurudeva school. In the previous video, we have discussed about the fifth chapter. The chapter name is Forest and Wildlife. In that, we have learnt what is the meaning of forest, how many types of forests we can see in the previous chapter. In the previous video, we have learnt about three forests. We have bifurcated 5 types of forests. In that we have learned 3 types of forest. Yes, today's session let us go to discuss about the fourth forest, name is mountain forest, or else we call it as a coniferous forest. Yes, these kind of forests we can see in the along the slope of the Himalaya. When we can see in the India map, in the north in the sense the head of the India, Kashmir, from the Kashmir to the slope of the Himalaya. In this range we can see the mountain forest or else coniferous forest. In that forest, oak and chestnuts are evergreen broad-leaved trees. Which are the evergreen broad-leaved trees? In the sense, oak and chestnut, it's a height of 1000 meter to 2000 meter. It is very tall. It's very tall. The total height of oak and chestnut trees are 1000 meter to 2000 meter. And one more thing, the coniferous trees are very tall trees with a needle-shaped leaves. Totally, these kind of trees, it has a needle-shaped leaves. And next thing is, we can see the different kinds of trees in the Himalayan range. For best example, pine, fir, kedar, spruce, oak and deodar also found between the height of 1500 meter to 3000 meter. So coniferous trees are very tall trees. It's very height. Totally 1500 meter to 3000 meter height we can see in these coniferous forest. And one more thing, these kind of trees also provide us timber and wood. Anyhow, you know that why do we use the timber? So timber we have to use to prepare medicines, and one more thing, to make a furnitures. For best example, if you want to build a house, we need a timber. So without timber we cannot build the houses. So that is what, to build a houses and to make a furniture. For that purpose we are going to use the timber. The second thing is wood. So why do we need wood? Anyhow, you know that we are using wood as a fuel, and for other things also, for other purpose also we are going to use the wood also. For best example, to prepare, to make a paper and prepare rubber, gum, medicines and many other things also we are going to prepare from the wood. So like this, these kinds of trees very useful to us. They are provide us many things. The next thing is one more thing, these kinds of mountain forests and coniferous forests and coniferous trees we can found in the Western Ghats and Vindhya range and Nilgiri Hills. In these areas we can see in the coniferous trees or coniferous forests also. And here we can see the different kinds of animals like Kashmir stags and red pandas, then spotted deers, goats and sheep. These kinds of animals also we can see in the mountain forest, or else we call it as a coniferous forest. Yes, these are the information about the fourth mountain forest. Now let us go to discuss about the fifth forest. The fifth forest name is Mangrove Forest. Fifth one forest name is Mangrove Forest. The Tidal forests are known as the Mangrove Forest. These kind of forest we can see near the coastal areas and salty and marshy land. where the place is very wet, especially the coastal areas are always it would be a wet. So that is what these kind of forest we can see the near marshy land, salt and marshy land. The second thing is the delta of the Ganga. Anyhow, though the Ganga basin, the Brahmaputra, Godavari, Krishna, Kaveri rivers, and as well as Andaman Islands also we can see the such kind of mangrove forest. The next thing is these forests are so very dense and very thick. Why? Because of presence of many roots. So these kind of trees are it has a more roots. These kind of trees has a more roots. It went too deep into the soil. So that is what always these trees are looks like very dense and thick. The next thing is dense mangrove forest in the Ganga Brahmaputra basin delta in the West Bengal. So we know that we call it as a Sundarbans. How the Sundarbans name comes? Do you know the reason? So why? Because of presence of many Sundari trees grows in this place. So that is what we call it as a Sundarbans in West Bengal state. Then different kinds of trees also we can see here. The best example are Kiora, Aga and coconut also grow here. So these trees are helps to make a boats and as well as they used to as a fuel. The last thing is we can see different kinds of animals also in the mangrove forest. For best example, crocodile, gorillas, snakes, turtles and etc. These kinds of animals also we can see in the mangrove forest. Yes, these are the information about the mangrove forest. Yes, dear children, why we have to conserve the forest? Because of the forests are useful to us in many ways in our daily life. The first thing is forests are looks like a green cover on the earth surface. Just if you observe the earth, it always look like a greenery. Why? Because of the many plants and trees are covered by the earth. So it is always the green cover on the earth surface. The second thing is these trees in the forest absorb the carbon dioxide. Why? When the forests and trees and plants are absorb the carbon dioxide, automatically it controls the air pollution in the environment. The third thing is we are getting different kinds of products from the forest and the trees also. Because of our best example, timber and wood. Anyhow, timber. Why do we use the timber? Timbers we have to use for build a houses and making furnitures. Then wood also use as a fuel and to prepare paper, gum and some cosmetic items and medicines plants. As a medicine plants for other purpose also we are going to use the timber and wood. So the next thing is forest are the habitat of wild animals. Anyhow, you know that the wild animals are always lived in the forest, because of without forest the wild animals can't live on the earth surface. So that is what the forest are the habitat of the wild animals. The next thing is soil erosion and floods are prevented by the presence of forest. So how the soil erosion and floods prevent when the presence of forests. Then the next over utilization of resource. Anyhow, when the population day by day it increases that we are going to over utilization of resource. For best example, we are going to use cutting down the trees. So in that way, so we are going to use many ways. So that is what forests have declined every year over the years. Why? Because of utilization of more resource from the forest. The next thing is deforestation also has led to air pollution, floods and soil erosion, then and landsliders also. Because of that, our government has taken many several important points like conserve forest. Now to learn how to conserve the forest. So what are the several steps our government has taken to conserve the forest? Now let us go to learn one by one. The first one is Chipko movement. So the Chipko movement is one of the important scheme what our government has taken. So here is a small story regarding the Chipko movement. Listen carefully, dear children. The villagers, especially in the hilly Uttaranchal state, they started to novel method of preventing deforestation. So they prevented cutting down of trees by putting their arms around them. They are going to refuse to cut the trees and refuse to move. So this movement was led by Sundarlal Bahugul. So the Chipko movement was led by the Sundarlal Bahugul. So it was known as the Chipko movement. So the second scheme was Vanamotsava. So Vanamotsava also is celebrated on 1st of July. In this celebration, the peoples are going to encourage to plant more trees and plants in the urban, rural and city and in the world. So they are going to encourage to plant more trees in the areas. The third scheme is social forestry scheme. So the social forestry scheme also one of the important scheme. So in this scheme, the urban peoples, they are going to encourage to plant more trees in the urban and rural and city areas. The next thing is the World Environmental Day. So especially the World Environmental Day is celebrated on 5th June. Anyhow, you know that every year we are going to celebrate the World Environmental Day. So what is the special of this celebration? Do you know, children? So especially in the World Environmental Day celebration, we are going to awareness about the conservation of forest. If you plant more trees, we are getting oxygen. Especially the people are going to spread awareness about the conservation of forest. So that is what it is also one of the important scheme what our government has taken to conserve the forest. The last point is trees are being planted in parks and along the roadsides in urban areas. So you might have seen the city areas and towns. You might have seen that. So in the urban areas also, in the roadside and in parks also, the government has given permission to planted more trees in these important areas. Yes, these are the important scheme what our government has taken in the world. Dear students, just now we have discussed about how to conserve the forest. Now let us go to discuss about in the conservation of wildlife. Yes, so wildlife also very important for us. So that is what in our India totally 90,000 animal species we can see. And for best example, one-horned rhinoceros, elephants, camels, Royal Bengal tiger, gazelle, yak, crocodile, snakes, goats, birds, animals and different kinds of species scattered in our country. So that is what. So some of the many animals species are facing a major threat. Major threat in the sense by hunting by the hunters and hunting by the animals. So here some animals became a existence and while some listed of endangered animals. Endangered animals in the sense ಅಳಿವಿನ ಅಂಚಿನಲ್ಲಿರತಕ್ಕಂತ ಪ್ರಾಣಿಗಳು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ನಾವಿಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. So that is what. So conservation of wildlife is an important to stop endangered species from becoming existence. So that is what our government has taken some important several steps to conservation of wildlife. So now let us go to discuss about the preservation of wildlife. Yes, what are the several steps our government has taken to preservation of our wildlife? Now let us go to learn one by one. The first one is the Wildlife Conservation Act in 1972. So according to this act, the people are spread the awareness about the preservation of wildlife in the restricted areas. The second thing is many forests and other areas are restricted areas as declared as restricted areas. So the best example are, so our government has set up some restricted areas like 92 national parks. 92 national parks and 492 wildlife sanctuaries and 4 biosphere reservoirs. So do you know the meaning of national park, dear children? So national park in the sense an area is set up for the preservation of wildlife. So that restricted area we call it as a national park. So how many national parks are in our India? Total 92 national parks in our India. So next thing is 492 wildlife sanctuaries. Yes, I think you might have got the doubt. What is the meaning of wildlife sanctuaries? So the wildlife sanctuaries in the sense the area is where birds or wild animals kept or protected from illegal hunting. So that restricted area we call it as a wildlife sanctuaries. The third thing is 4 biosphere reservoir. So biosphere reservoir in the sense an area of land or water that is protected by a law to support the conservation of wildlife. So that law is support to conservation of wildlife. So that is what we call it as a biosphere reservoirs. So that is what our government has set up these national parks, 92 national parks, 492 wildlife sanctuaries and 4 biosphere reservoirs. So dear students, what our government has set up 92 national parks and 492 wildlife sanctuaries and 4 biosphere reservoirs. In that just I introduced some national parks and wildlife sanctuaries. Listen carefully everybody according to the states. Yes, the first one is Corbett National Park in Uttaranchal. Corbett National Park in Uttaranchal state. Then Kaziranga National Park in Assam state. The Kaziranga National Park in Assam state. And Sundarbans Tiger Reserve, the West Bengal. The Sundarbans Tiger Reserve, West Bengal. And Gir National Park in Gujarat state. Gir National Park in Gujarat state. And Khanna National Park in Madhya Pradesh. And Bandipur National Park in our Karnataka. So Bandipur National Park in our Karnataka. Then next Periyar Wildlife Sanctuaries we can see in Kerala state. The Periyar Wildlife Sanctuaries we can see in Kerala state. Then Chilka Lake Bird Sanctuaries we can see in the Orissa state. So these are the bird sanctuaries and wildlife sanctuaries and national parks what our government has set up in our India. And the next point is cutting down trees and hunting the animals strictly prohibited in the restricted areas. What did I say? The national park and bird sanctuaries and even biosphere reservoir. In these areas strictly prohibited the cutting down trees and hunting the animals. The next thing is different project to introduce from the Indian government like Project Tiger in 1973 and Project Elephant in 1992 and Project Rhino also. These are the important project our government has introduced to protect the animals. The next important point is there are many NGOs. So NGOs in the sense non-government organization. So under the non-government organization, so our India is set up some important projects. For best example, the first one is wildlife sanctuaries in Orissa state, and next Friends of Forests in Maharashtra state, and Rhino Foundation of Nature in Assam state. So these are the important NGOs to create awareness to preservation of our wildlife sanctuaries and national parks and biosphere reservation areas. So that is what these are the important steps our government has taken to preservation of our wildlife. Yes, dear students, I think you got all the points regarding how to preservation of wildlife. One more thing, dear children, I suggest you please after the videos twice or thrice read the textbook carefully and observe the important new vocab points. Let's revise points and quick recap questions. There will be some quick recap questions in your test book. After the reading test book, please try to answer for the quick recap questions. Thank you.